The world is watching as a new chapter unfolds in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. On October 2, 2025, former U.S. President Donald Trump, alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, announced a dramatic peace plan for Gaza. This is not a negotiation, it's an ultimatum. Hamas has just days to accept or face a renewed Israeli offensive, now with explicit U.S. backing. The timing is critical, coming nearly 2 years after the devastating 2023 war that left Gaza in ruins. As Hamas deliberates, Israeli forces are already escalating operations around Gaza City. Central to the plan is a board of peace, temporarily chaired by Trump, to oversee Gaza's redevelopment. This move puts Trump at the heart of Gaza's future, drawing both global praise and criticism. The plan marks a shift. Instead of pressuring Israel to de-escalate, it puts the onus on Hamas to accept or face consequences. If Hamas rejects the deal, U.S. support for Israeli military action could erase previous calls for restraint. For Netanyahu, the plan offers a political lifeline, but it's risky. Its vague promises of Palestinian statehood and an Israeli buffer zone have already angered his right-wing coalition. The clock is ticking, and the region is bracing for what comes next. The stakes for Gaza, Israel, and the broader Middle East have never been higher. Trump's plan demands Hamas's total disarmament and surrender of all governing power in Gaza, effectively ending its existence as a military and political force. In exchange, the plan offers amnesty for those who disarm and a phased release of hostages and prisoners. All Israeli hostages must be freed within 72 hours, followed by Israel releasing over 1,900 Palestinian prisoners. Israeli troops would gradually withdraw, but Israel would keep a security buffer zone inside Gaza for the foreseeable future, a point many Palestinians see as continued occupation. Governance would shift to an undefined international stabilization force, then eventually to a reformed Palestinian Authority. The plan mentions a pathway to Palestinian statehood, but with no timeline, borders, or clear mechanism, making it feel distant and uncertain. The promise of statehood is tied to Gaza's redevelopment and PA reform, conditions critics say could delay it indefinitely. For many Palestinians, the deal offers little more than a future of ambiguity and continued control. The sequencing, hostages first, withdrawal later, remains a major sticking point. The plan's core: surrender now, promises later. Hamas faces a stark choice: accept total surrender or risk annihilation. The plan demands Hamas give up its weapons and political power, an existential threat to the group's identity and leverage. Hamas was excluded from negotiations, receiving the plan as a non-negotiable ultimatum, fueling distrust and rejection. The requirement to release all hostages before Israeli withdrawal means giving up their main bargaining chip. The continued Israeli buffer zone and vague international force are seen as new forms of occupation, not liberation. Internal divisions complicate matters. The military wing in Gaza, led by hardliners, is determined to keep fighting, while the political leadership abroad is sidelined. Accepting the plan would be seen as betrayal by many fighters and supporters. The lack of inclusion and harsh terms make acceptance nearly impossible. For Hamas, the plan is capitulation, not compromise. Netanyahu publicly accepted Trump's plan, but his government is deeply divided. To appease far-right partners, Netanyahu has already distanced himself from key elements, especially any mention of Palestinian statehood or full withdrawal from Gaza. Hardline factions want total reoccupation and reject any international force or path to Palestinian self-determination. Netanyahu is trying to balance U.S. demands with domestic political survival. Other Palestinian militant groups, like Islamic Jihad, have outright rejected the plan, calling it a blueprint for permanent Israeli control. This puts pressure on Hamas. Accepting could mean losing leadership of the resistance. The Palestinian Authority, set to govern Gaza under the plan, faces a legitimacy crisis. It would be seen as imposed by Israel and the U.S., not chosen by the people. The plan's conditions make it a poisoned chalice for all involved. The world's response to Trump's Gaza plan is mixed. Some Western and Arab governments welcome it as a chance to end the war, urging Hamas to consider it. Yet, many analysts warn the plan's success depends on sustained U.S. involvement, which is far from certain. The ultimatum removes pressure on Israel. If Hamas rejects it, the U.S. will back a full-scale Israeli offensive. This could lead to a catastrophic escalation, with Israel shielded from international criticism. The plan comes amid a UN report accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza, a charge Israel and the U.S. deny, but which shapes global perceptions. Many in the global South see the plan as legitimizing further violence, not peace. The recent interception of an aid flotilla, including activists like Greta Thunberg, sparked global protests and highlighted ongoing opposition to the blockade. Grassroots movements view Trump's plan as a tool to entrench the status quo, not resolve it. While leaders debate, Gaza's humanitarian crisis grows ever more dire. Over 66,000 have died. Most of Gaza's 2.3 million residents are displaced, living in tents or ruins. Infrastructure, hospitals, schools, water, power, is decimated. Famine is now a grim reality. Hundreds, including many children, have died from starvation. Aid is woefully insufficient, and intensified Israeli offensives worsen the suffering. New evacuation orders and road closures trap people in the south, fueling fears of permanent displacement. The psychological toll is immense. Generations know only war, loss, and trauma. Gaza's social fabric is unraveling under relentless bombardment and deprivation. For ordinary Gazans, politics are secondary to survival. They want the war to end, no matter the deal's flaws. Many say even a bad peace is better than endless destruction, but fear the plan's long-term consequences. Journalist Fatih Sabah warns that rejecting the deal could unleash an even more devastating Israeli assault, while acceptance could mean permanent subjugation. Civilians feel powerless, their fate decided by distant leaders, with no voice in the process. There's deep resentment at being excluded from decisions about their own future. Despite exhaustion, many fear surrender would mean losing dignity, autonomy, and the dream of a sovereign state. Hamas's decision will shape Gaza's fate for years to come. Acceptance would halt the fighting and start a fragile transition. Hostages released, Israeli withdrawal, and prisoner exchanges. But the process would be fraught with uncertainty. Disarmament, international oversight, and political reform could all unravel. More likely, Hamas will reject the plan, triggering a massive Israeli assault with U.S. backing. The humanitarian catastrophe would deepen, and Gaza could be devastated beyond repair. Israel might dismantle Hamas, but at a staggering human cost, fueling future cycles of violence. The dream of Palestinian statehood would recede even further. The choice is not just about Hamas, it's about whether the cycle of violence will finally end or be tragically reinforced.